This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, this is Maureen Bogey.
And this is Dylan Hackworth.
And you have landed just smack dab in the middle of Creep Street Podcast.
Incoming! Creep Street.
Whoa, that got the attention of Banshee.
Yes. God, you know, the closer we get to the big 31, and I don't mean our ages, I mean that day of October.
That's right.
The more I am coming alive.
I know. I feel I just love it. You know what I mean? It's like you go outside and you don't immediately just want to die because it's so hot. You know what I mean?
Yes. Some people are the opposite. I mean, granted, I don't like it. I don't like being freezing cold either.
Oh no, I hate that too.
But if I had to choose, I probably would choose like cold over the heat. Now, if it was like, you know, Antarctica, no.
Yeah.
But or if the snow is 50 feet high.
Oh God.
But if it was just fridge, you know what I mean? I probably would have to go with that.
Yeah.
Over extreme heat. I would think.
Yeah, I just think like we're talking Fahrenheit here. I feel like good old 50 to good old 69.
Woo!
Or 70. I'll even go to like 70.
Hey.
I think that's where I thrive.
But no, yes. And also, we had a wonderful weekend. The madman Marcus Hall and his wife Megan came over. We carved up some good old pumpkins.
We got some pumpkins carved. So it's really feeling like it's, you know, it's spooky season. We're watching the programs.
Yeah.
We are doing the activities.
Oh, yeah.
We are, you know, opening windows, but sometimes closing them because it's cold.
Absolutely.
You know, all sorts of stuff. And we hope that you all are enjoying this spooky, scary time in a, you know, of course, positive, spooky, scary, and enjoying it.
Absolutely. And we'll post photos of the pumpkins we made.
Oh, of course. Now, of course, if you want to keep up on what we are up to and you want to check us out on social media, we're at Creep Street Podcast all over the damn place. It's some good stuff over there. So go ahead and check that out. Also, if you need some more Creep Street content.
Yeah.
If you need more, you can't scratch that itch.
Oh, yeah. I'm itching all over.
You might want to see a doctor, or you could go to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
There we've got the bonus content is it's exquisite.
It is. And also, want to give a big thank you to Mr. Adam Selzer. I hope everyone enjoyed our we released it on Tuesday evening. Just a little conversation I had with him about, you know, just Chicago in general. We didn't go into like a specific haunting or anything, but that was something I kind of wanted to do. I wanted to kind of, you know, give a little love letter to Chicago. And, you know, Adam has been featured on many paranormal programs. I'm sure if you are a watcher of paranormal television, you have probably seen him at one time or another. He's been on American Ripper. He's been all over the place. So a big thank you to him for being so gracious with his time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we hope you all enjoyed that episode. If you haven't listened to it yet, you can just go on back and tune in. Now, one more reminder for you here.
No.
The inaugural episode of the Creep Street Book Club is quickly approaching.
Yes, it is.
That will be posted on YouTube on October 31st, aka Halloween. Ever heard of it? And in our first episode, I will be talking about the book Mothman in Love.
Whoa, ladies, please.
Yeah, oh yeah. So feel free to pick that up at your local, bookstore, or, sometimes you gotta Amazon it. It's life's about balance.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to talk about it once again. It's spicy and it's raunchy, and I didn't know that going in. But once again, we're leaning in, we're going for it, and I'm excited. So, you know what? Go ahead and get your reading glasses on, prepare, and we're excited to get that going. Now, of course, the most recent episode is the interview with Adam Selzer, but our, full numbered episodes, our full-blown episodes, as it were. Our last episode was a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Yes, it was, and boy, oh boy, this episode is going to go places you just cannot imagine.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I can't wait to just learn more and just really get spooked, because last week's episode was wild, and and you said it's even going to get crazier.
So much crazier.
All right, Dylan, what are we talking about?
All right, Creep Street, grab your silver bullets, because today's episode is The Werewolf of Bray Road, Volume 2. Now, where we last left off, we were following Travis Clark. He was in an awful car accident. His father is missing. He doesn't remember quite where he was going or where he was really even from. He just knows his father was missing. And all the while, he has been stalked by some beast, some bipedal, also quadrupedal. I don't know if that's the word.
Quadruped, I don't know.
Quadruped, an animal that runs on 2 legs and 4, has been stalking him through the woods. And he had to spend one night out in like a crappy little swamp on a raft.
Yeah.
He spent 1 or 2 nights in a abandoned camper he found.
I mean, it's insane. And this is like, southeast Wisconsin. It's not like it's, once again, it's not fully the middle of nowhere.
You're right.
It's just, this is wild.
And where we left off, he had seen someone in the woods up a trail far ahead of him, but then when he turned the corner, it was a dead end.
Yeah.
Next thing he knew, he was being chased again by some sort of beast he couldn't quite see, but he could hear. And the next thing he knew, he was falling, and he found himself in a deep pit. And as he looked up above him, you'll remember, he saw a snout emerge from the side of the hole, and looking down at him were 2 beady eyes. That's when he heard a woman's voice shout out, "Mickey!" Travis realized the animal looking down at him was not whatever had been chasing him, but rather, it was a good old dog named Mickey.
Oh, Mickey, what are you doing?
Relief rushed over him as a woman with gray hair, probably in her 60s, looked over the edge of the hole and down at him. And she asked, "What in heavens are you doing down there?"
A good question.
Travis explained he was looking for his father and had been lost for a few days. And she lowered a piece of wood down in the hole, and Travis was able to climb out of it. Travis explained to her that he had been searching for his father and that the whole time he had been stalked by this monster. But rather than act surprised, the woman didn't even acknowledge that he had said the word monster. And in fact, in the book, I thought it was interesting, Travis even says it was the first time he had said out loud the word monster.
Yeah.
Partly probably because he didn't have anyone to talk to.
Right.
And he said it was one of those almost therapeutic things where you have something in your head, but once you say it out loud, you realize, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's almost like therapy in a way.
Totally, yeah. It's just, it helps to say it out loud, peeps.
She said her name was Denise Bennett, and that they would get him cleaned up and take him to the police to get him help. She asked where the crash had happened, and honestly, Travis had no idea. It was night when it happened, and he was not familiar with the area. I guess him and his father were like on their way to somewhere.
Oh, okay.
And Travis obviously was not familiar with the area.
Right.
She said they were on the outskirts of a town called Elkhorn, Wisconsin, a place Travis had never heard of. After some walking, they came upon her white Chevy truck, and they chatted as they drove to where she lived. Her husband was out mowing the lawn, and the neighborhood they lived in seemed sort of run down, and there was something at first that seemed off about it. But because of Denise's warm demeanor, the place actually almost seemed charming rather than foreboding.
Mm-hmm.
They got inside their home, and Travis was finally able to clean up. The feeling of warm, clean water on his hands alone felt incredible.
I can't imagine. Oh, my God.
Because you have to assume whatever that hole was, it was someplace where they were dumping, like...
Yeah.
What
the fuck was that?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
they never explain it, but I assume it was like the runoff from a sewer, or like maybe where they kept like pig and... Because you'll see they live on a farm.
Right.
And so maybe it's where they kept the manure or so. I have no idea.
I don't know, but it sounds bad.
Before showering, he cleaned the dirt from under his fingernails, and as he did, he happened to look up and out the bathroom window at the house that was next door. The house was also very run down, but that's not what gave Travis an eerie feeling. Standing outside the neighboring house was a strange, burly man who was silently staring at the house he was in, the Bennett's house. It was almost like he was staring right at him.
Yeah.
But why? Travis watched this man staring at him for several minutes until it was as if the man just sort of woke up from a trance. And he watched as the man turned and walked away down the road to his own house. It was down the road a bit and perched up on a tall hill. Very strange.
Yeah.
After cleaning up, Travis entered the kitchen to the smell of French toast. Denise was happy to feed the poor boy she had found lost in the woods, of course. And Travis asked if they could call the police now, and Denise said she had already had. So he might as well get comfy and eat something.
Oh no, I'm nervous.
Travis ate his French toast and asked about the strange man he had seen who lived over on the hill. And Denise said that by his description, he had probably seen a man named Keith Farley. She described Keith as having a bit of a screw loose, and that her and her husband usually try to avoid him. And it was then that her husband came in with the dog, with Mickey, and her husband Henry was just as friendly as Denise was. And that he sat and talked, and he heard the boy's story as well. And like I said, he was friendly also.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, there was a knock at the door. They opened it up, and in walked a policeman, probably around 45 years old, Travis guessed in the book. He was also very friendly. He introduced himself as Officer Williams, and he explained they had found the overturned vehicle and that he had many questions, of course, for Travis. He asked if he was with anyone else besides his father, and what did he actually remember. Travis explained everything to him the best he could, and he talked about the creature that had been stalking him the past few days. He was terrified that they were going to think he was nuts, but as he told his story, he noticed none of them seemed surprised. The policeman said it sounded like Travis had encountered a local legend known as the Beast of Bray Road. And he told Travis a bit of the history of the creature, and the legend that surrounds it, and Travis was certain that that was what he had encountered. The officer explained that they would continue their search for his father, and in the meantime, he could stay with the Bennett family who had found him. Now, Travis hasn't yet noticed it, but this is where I started to think, okay, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, why would Travis, a lost child, not be taken to the police station?
This is weird, and this is giving me misery realness. That's tough. That sucks.
Everyone seemed kind of nonchalant. Well, they fixed up Travis with a nice coat and some gloves, because keep in mind, it was cold.
Yeah.
Very cold. And Henry asked if Travis would like to join him in cutting some firewood outside. So they were out there, and Travis had so many questions about this legend of this beast.
Mm-hmm.
Henry was a very friendly, jovial guy, but when the subject of the beast came up, he got a little quiet. Cryptically, he said to Travis, "Strange woods around here, but also some strange people." He wanted Henry to elaborate on what that meant, but he got the sense he should just let the subject be. And of course, hearing Henry say strange people, he of course thought, oh, they must be referring to that weirdo, Keith, who lives down the road.
Right.
And keep in mind, Travis will kind of get an idea of his age. He never says how old he is. My guess is like at the very oldest, maybe mid-teenage years.
Okay.
My guess is somewhere between 13, 15.
Yeah, that's young for this fucking bullshit.
And I remember when I was young, like, I can remember like when it came to calling 911, like, you know, you were always raised that, at least where I was, you know, 911, you know, of course, if something bad, you know, call 911. But like there was also this fear of, around calling 911 because it seemed so serious.
It's like it had to be bad enough to call 911. Like you could never be like, oh, like it's okay, I can handle it. Which I mean, is how you should be. Like you should really only call 911 when you need to.
Right.
But it does bring out that like kind of sense of anxiety when you're like, you don't know.
So, because at that age, I could see how I would be a little like almost waiting for the cue from the adults to say, let's call.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Because you just kind of trust them and also you just don't know what to do.
Right, exactly. After a while, they went back in where Denise was preparing dinner already. It was around 5 p.m. when they ate dinner, and it was a good time. They told stories to Travis, had a few laughs. Henry shared some stories of his time serving in the National Guard, and they enjoyed some homemade cider made by Denise. Being that Denise and Henry were an older couple, they ate dinner kind of early and went to bed early, and it was around 9 p.m. when Travis found himself in the guest room in bed, and obviously this was early for him, but because of everything that he had been through and, you know, they were being so kind, he just was like, okay, well, I can just, I want to abide by the rules. You know?
Yeah. He's probably tired, too.
Yeah. And, of course, because of all the trauma he had just been through the last few days, of course, every little noise in the night made him jump.
For sure.
A few hours passed, and just as Travis's eyes were growing heavy and beginning to close, he was alert again when he heard the sound, faintly, of what sounded like the voice of a young woman calling out for help. He held his breath, hoping that maybe it had just been a dream. He listened intently, and a few minutes later, he heard once again what sounded like a muffled whimper. But Travis decided he was not going to investigate. Whatever it was, if it was loud enough for him to hear it, surely the Bennetts would have heard it.
Yeah.
Travis awoke the next morning, and he was startled to see that Denise was standing only a few feet from him, a big smile on her face. She told him breakfast would be ready shortly, and with that, she quickly turned and exited the room, closing the door somewhat, but leaving it ajar a little bit. Now, this was the first time that Travis was starting to get a weird vibe from Denise and Henry.
Yeah.
She was standing there smiling as he woke up.
No.
Well, he went out there and they had breakfast, and Travis wanted to ask if the police had come back with any updates, but he just assumed that they would have told him if there had been.
Oh, this is a lot. And I'm reminded of so many different horror movies right now.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Henry asked Travis once again if he could help him with some chores around the farmstead, and not wanting to be rude, Travis said yes. It was then that something struck Travis as odd. Henry said, well, it looks like we may have a little farmer on our hands. But it was in a tone that he said it that seemed off. It was almost the way an adult talks to a baby or even like a puppy.
Yeah.
Almost like, well, it looks like we may have a little farmer on our hands. You know, it was like a...
yeah, that's weird. Like very affected voice.
Very affected. Yeah, like he said, like it was talking to a baby or even a puppy.
Yeah.
And while I cannot get a definite age here, like I said, the vibe I get from Travis was early, at the latest mid-teens, early teens. Is kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah.
After breakfast, Travis followed Henry outside to the barn where he was surprised to find that it had horses and pigs inside. And they were all very happy to see them because that meant they were about to get fed. And this gave Travis a little comfort since these animals would obviously be prey for that creature that had been stalking him. So this was perhaps evidence that the creature was, for some reason, afraid to come to this area, at least to this property, maybe.
Yeah.
You would think horses, pigs, that would be prime.
Yeah.
Prime. That's a 5-star meal. That's a Michelin-starred meal for a werewolf.
Yeah, that's Guy Fieri, baby.
That's right. Take us to Flavor Town, Elkhorn.
Yeah, let's do it. But it's weird. It's weird because why? What is going on? I just need to know what's going on. I'm freaking out.
There was a white horse in particular that caught Travis's eye.
Oh.
He noticed on its backside 4 long parallel scars. And while they were fully healed, it was obvious that at the time of the injury, they were pretty grievous wounds.
Yikes.
Travis couldn't help but notice how it looked as if the horse had been slashed by like a claw. It gave him a flashback to his dad's overturned truck and the claw marks that were on the driver's side door. They looked almost similar, like they had come from a very large animal. But Henry put Travis to work chopping some vegetables, and he left Travis in there in the barn while he tended to other chores around the farm. Some time passed, and Travis is just cutting up vegetables. He was so lost in thought that he didn't even notice the sound of footsteps approaching him from behind.
Oh, no.
Right as Travis realized there was someone or something behind him, he was grabbed. One hand was over his mouth while another wrapped around his torso. Whoever it was picked him up and was carrying him out of the barn.
Oh, God.
This, though, was not some sort of animal. This was a person. Travis was terrified when he realized he had been grabbed by none other than local weirdo Keith Farley.
No.
Travis tried to shout for help, but the hand over his mouth and nose was nearly suffocating.
Yikes.
Keith quickly carried him across the road towards his house that was up on the hill. When they got to the chain link fence that surrounded the property, he chucked Travis over it, and Travis hit the ground on the other side hard, knocking the wind out of it.
Ugh.
It gave the man enough time to open the gate and walk through and lock it behind him. And just as Travis had enough air in his lungs to scream, Keith muffled him again, picking him up and carrying him to a guest house that was behind his main house.
Oh, no.
As they went around the side of the house, out of view of the neighbors, Travis started to see these targets that had been set up in the backyard. They were sort of mannequin-like. And he knew they were targets because all of them had several arrows protruding from them.
Oof.
Keith dragged Travis to one of the entrances of this smaller guest house that was on the property. And as he let go with one hand, he used it to open the door with a key. Travis was able to bite down hard on Keith's left arm. Keith roared with anger as he threw the boy inside the house. "You're gonna pay for that, you little prick," shouted Keith at him. He exited and slammed the door shut, locking it behind him, leaving Travis alone. He could hear the door on the other side being locked with the key.
Wow.
Standing up, he looked around the area and noticed that all of the windows had been barred. Getting back his strength, Travis rushed to another door and opened it, and it led into the rest of the house. The decor was very outdated. Before him stretched a narrow lavender-carpeted hallway with various doors, and he opened the first door to his left and found a bedroom with that same lavender carpeting. Dusty old boxes were laid out everywhere, and his heart dropped when he noticed the bed. On it was blood splatter.
Oh, no.
It was clear there had been some sort of a violent struggle.
Ugh.
Travis knew the only way out was probably through the door he was brought through. He looked around all over for something he could use to defend himself with. He noticed a metal bed frame in one of the rooms that had a loose leg, and he was able, after much effort, was able to pull it from the rest of the frame. And now he had at least something to defend himself with. That's when Travis heard what sounded like a voice. A woman's voice. He followed the sound to one of the doors in the hallway and put his ear up to it. And when he did, he realized the door was made of steel. He couldn't hear well enough to know what was being said, but on the other side of the door, he heard what sounded like a woman just talking casually. She didn't sound afraid or anything. She was talking casually. And there was also the sound of someone snoring as well, like she was talking and another person was snoring. Travis did not have time to dwell on this, though, as he heard the sound of footsteps approaching the door he had entered through. Thinking quick, Travis ran to one of the empty rooms and hid in a closet. His hands gripped the metal leg from the bed frame. He heard someone enter. Slowly, they walked through the room and into the hall. and he heard them suddenly dash into the room he was in, but they passed right by the closet he was in and into the bathroom that was in the room.
Oof.
This was his moment. Travis ran, and as he did, he could hear footsteps in pursuit of him. He was so scared it took him a moment to open the door when he got to it. And just as he was stepping through it, an arm grabbed him. Travis spun around and smashed the person on the side of the head with that metal bed leg. The person screamed and jumped back, clutching their head. Travis assumed this was Keith, even though he didn't actually get a look at the person's face. Travis ran outside and past the creepy Target mannequins and by Keith's main house. All the while, he could hear the thump of boots not far behind him. Getting to the fence, Travis was able to use his adrenaline to quickly scale the fence and get to the other side. He dashed down the road towards Denise and Henry's house. He went to the door that entered into the kitchen. It was locked. He pounded on it feverishly, hoping someone would open up. He ran around to the side of the house to the garage, but that too was closed. So he kept running back to the front door, and surprisingly, the front door was open. Travis rushed inside, shouting, "Denise! Henry!" He turned and locked the door behind him. Denise and Henry were clearly not home, and he wondered if Keith had gotten them too. Mickey the dog was clearly not home either. Where had they all gone? The house was eerily quiet. So Travis grabbed his things, some food, and a knife, and ran into the forest in the horizon.
Wow.
There was a lot of open area before he could get to the forest. And the whole time he's scared, like, are they going to see me? He's just running.
He's very vulnerable.
Travis finally reaches the forest, and he ducks behind a tree in order to catch his breath. And he peered out, and in the distance, standing next to Denise and Henry's house, he could see Keith. Travis assumed he was far enough away that Keith couldn't see him. But that's when he realized Keith was looking at him with binoculars. And with the ground being soft, Travis had left tracks leading right to him. He looked away for not long, only to look back and see that Keith was already on his way. So Travis took off running. He saw a clearing ahead and felt relief when he saw a large building in the distance. It was maybe a barn, but it was off in the distance, beyond the woods. And as he ran, Travis suddenly heard the sound of a diesel engine truck. It was Keith, and he had been spotted. Keith was driving along the periphery of the woods, and he could clearly see Travis. In Travis's periphery, in the periphery of his eyes, he could now see the truck had slowed down and was keeping pace with him. Travis was afraid that he was taking aim and was about to shoot him.
Yeah.
That's when Travis heard the sound of glass smashing. It sounded like the truck must have hit something. This sudden stroke of luck was enough to give Travis an adrenaline boost, and he just kept running. He came out into a clearing and finally worked up the nerve to look back and see what had happened. When he did, he came to an abrupt halt. At first, he could not believe what he was seeing. Hanging out of the driver's side window of Keith's diesel truck were two huge, fur-covered legs.
Oh my God.
They kicked wildly as whatever this creature was trying to climb into the cab of the truck to get Keith. Travis realized maybe this is what happened to him and his father. But there was no time to think now. All he could notice was the shape of the legs. And though they were bigger than a human's legs, they were shaped like a dog's.
Yeah.
Gives new meaning to the phrase, "My dogs are barking."
Oh, Dylan, I love it when you bring in the wordplay.
Hey, it's what the people want.
It is. They beg it. They're begging for it.
Travis stood there for a moment, taking in the incredible sight that was before him. But he soon snaps out of it and continues running towards the building ahead. As he got onto the property of the building he was running toward, he realized it was a big chicken barn. Like one of those industrial sites where they have thousands of chickens, you know.
Yeah, not great.
He looked back and in the distance saw the creature pull itself out of the truck window and drop down to all fours. But then it went out of sight. He had no idea if the thing was coming for him now. So he entered the barn, and of course, it's massive. It's a huge barn. And there are just thousands of chickens in there. But of course, not a person in sight. It's one of those where there's kind of like one aisle that goes straight down the middle, and then there's just rows of chickens on either side.
Yeah.
And this row is about 50 yards long.
Oh my God.
This one room is about 50 yards long.
Yeah,
so he said,
very big.
tons of chickens, no people.
Like, what the fuck?
So he takes off running down this 50-yard stretch because at the other end he can see a few doors.
Yeah.
He gets there. He looks in one. It's like a dark storage room. There's nothing in there. He goes to the other, and it's an office. And thank God, there's a person inside. The man in this office is an older gentleman with gray hair, and of course he's startled as hell. And he asks this young man what the heck he's doing there. Travis is trying to catch his breath and trying to explain that there was a man who was chasing him and they needed to call the police. And the guy said, hold on a second, because, I'm sure Travis is kind of catching his breath and it's probably hard to follow. And he's like, hold on a second.
Right.
And he said, my name is Farmer Phil. And he asked for a little more explanation. What the heck is going on?
Okay.
And Travis explained there was also a beast chasing him, and it attacked the truck of the guy who was also chasing him. And that's when Travis saw Farmer Phil's eyes light up.
Oh, no.
He even interrupted Travis during the middle of his story, saying, hold on a second. Did you say this creature had pointy ears and walked on two legs? Travis is like, yeah. Farmer Phil was very aware of this creature, as a couple years prior, the same beast had killed tons of his chickens.
Oh my God.
But at the time, he was able to chase it off with a rifle. So Farmer Phil, as Travis is still explaining things, begging that they call the police, he unlocks a cabinet, pulls out the rifle. Travis implores him, could we please just call the dang cops?
Yeah.
But Farmer Phil didn't even answer. Armed with his rifle, he walked past Travis and out of the office. And side note, this is what I put in my thing, and like I said, maybe it's because he's young and whatnot, but
yeah.
Why didn't Travis just pick up the phone himself and call?
I know. Did he think that he couldn't for some reason or something?
I don't know.
That he thought he wasn't allowed to or something?
Maybe this is one of those suspensions of disbelief things.
And also sometimes maybe that was... You had to be there.
Well, also, like we said, the guy, Travis Clark, even though that's not his real name, he even said, like, I can't write, like, a compelling narrative.
Yeah.
So maybe Tom Lyons, I'm sure you got to give it a little...
You got to zhuzh it.
You got to zhuzh it a little bit just to make the story flow.
Exactly, for it to be like a narrative rather than just kind of like a list.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, who knows? That's fine. Anyway, so Travis follows Farmer Phil, and he asks, is there anyone else working at the farm that day? And Phil says no, it was Sunday, and he was the only one working. Taking a deep breath, Farmer Phil hit the button that opened the motorized barn doors and stepped outside to check the perimeter. Farmer Phil had barely taken a couple steps out the door when it happened.
Oh no.
With a sudden, loud roar, the creature pounced on Farmer Phil. The rifle was knocked from his hand, and he was taken to the ground hard. Travis watched in unspeakable terror as the beast's jaws bit down hard on the top of Farmer Phil's head.
Oh no.
He screamed a primal scream as blood began to flood out of him. Travis actually says this verbatim in the source. Within a couple of seconds, there was so much blood that I wanted to vomit.
Oh, I mean, it is true. It happens fast.
So that'll put you if that puts it in perspective.
Oh yeah.
This creature was so massive, he knew there was nothing he could do to help poor Farmer Phil.
No, and we love Farmer Phil.
I know, it's the one, even though fucker didn't just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I kind of like that this guy had it reminds me of Muldoon, I think that was his name, Muldoon, the hunter in Jurassic Park. Clever girl.
The last time I watched Jurassic Park, Bill Clinton was president, so I don't really remember.
Okay.
I got to rewatch.
You mean when dinosaurs really roamed the earth?
Oh, come on.
Oh, just kidding.
We have fun.
Travis turned and rushed back into the barn. He went back to the office and slammed the door shut and barricaded it. He looked around, hoping maybe there was another gun around, but all he could find was ammunition. He couldn't even find anything he could use as a club. That's when he heard a noise. It was the sound of chickens going absolutely crazy.
Oh, no.
It sounded like the beast was now tearing its way through the barn, having a little poultry.
Ooh, yikes. A little bit of poultrygeist activity, am I right?
Oh, yeah. Travis looked up to find a ventilation shaft, and thankfully, he was able to find a screwdriver and some tools in the desk. And while he felt bad for the poor chickens, at least this may buy him some time and mask the sound of him trying to unscrew the vent. He stacked up some boxes so he could reach it, and he had just begun loosening the first screw when bang! There came a loud noise at the door. Travis was startled and dropped the screwdriver and watched in horror as it rolled under some shelving units.
Oh, no.
Bang! There it came again, another violent noise at the door. In the source, he describes it as sounding like almost like a rhino was trying to bust through the door.
Ugh.
He got down and was reaching underneath the screwdriver. Bang! It just kept coming. Finally, he was able to grab the screwdriver. He got back up there and he unscrewed the rest of the screws on the vent. All the while, this thing is pounding on the door. He had pulled himself up into the vent and was able to get a good distance into the shaft when he heard a loud bang of the door being knocked off its hinges. And of course, this thing was filled with cobwebs, but that was the least of Travis's concerns.
Oh, yeah.
While the creature certainly couldn't fit in the ventilation shaft, it did know that Travis was in there. The light dimmed as the monster's body blocked the light from the office, and he could hear it growl. Travis hurried along and was able to crawl around a turn in the shaft. He saw another vent grid and it looked over a restroom, but Travis kept crawling until he came to another choice of direction. He could go left, right, or continue going straight. For a brief moment, Travis actually felt comforted by having even a single moment to weigh options and actually make a choice.
That's interesting. I was thinking the opposite, where it's like, this is awful. Now I'm at this place where now I have to make a choice and I don't know. I might pick the wrong one and blah, blah. But maybe I could totally see the perspective of it's a welcome change to be able to have some kind of autonomy.
Well, that comfort was gone when Travis suddenly heard the thud of the creature shoving itself into the ventilation shaft.
Oh, God.
With no time to think, he continued crawling forward as fast as he could. As he's crawling, Travis is praying that he's not crawling towards a dead end. He came to another turn in the shaft and found another vent grate that looked down into a storage room of some kind. And there was enough light in the room to indicate that there must be a window to the outside in this room.
Right.
So he begins to kick the grate, trying to get it to come unhinged, and all the while he can hear the sound of the creature approaching in the ventilation shaft. Finally, the vent gave way and Travis dropped into the room below. It was a dirty old room with chicken feed and various other things, and he soon realized that all of the windows in this room hadn't been opened, let alone cleaned, in years.
Ooh.
They were all rusted shut.
Oh, fuck. Of course.
Bang! Travis turned around to see the creature's snout and jaws of razor-sharp teeth poke out from the vent shaft. He ran to the door and opened it, looking back only for a moment. He described the creature as being like an oversized wolf, but with a face that was more like a hyena's. It almost had that sort of like mohawk thing on top of its head.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
That was sort of a different shade of fur than the rest of the fur, you know?
Yeah, think of the hyenas in The Lion King.
Right.
Those are, of course, not the perfect example, but that might just be the easiest example for you to conjure up in your head.
Right. But Travis snapped out of it and kept moving. The hallway was dark, and there were a few doors to choose from. One of the doors had a small square-shaped window from which came natural light, so Travis chose that route, as it may lead to the outside. He got through the door only to realize that the light was coming from windows that were way too high out of reach for him. And there was a couple of bathrooms there was a woman's restroom he went in, but it really wasn't, it was a tiny room, it wasn't going to give him any sort. If this thing can now, we know, bust through doors.
Right, it's like that doesn't even help anymore.
It's not going to help.
So what do you even do at that point?
He turned back down the hall and passed by the room with the creature in it, and he heard a crash as the creature hit the floor, probably bringing down most of the ventilation shaft with it. As he ran by the door, bang, it hit hard against it. And to his horror, Travis heard the sound of the doorknob twisting. This caused Travis to run what was probably the fastest he had ever run in his life, he says. He was coming to the other door, and bang, he heard the creature break through the door of the room that Travis had shut it in. And he could hear the sound of bipedal footsteps as it rushed after him. Thankfully, this door ahead of him was open, but it didn't have a lock on it. Travis dashed through the door, slamming it behind him, and he grabbed a chair and had just put it up against the door when bang, the creature hit the door so hard it sent Travis reeling backwards. He got to his feet, realizing he was back in the huge main room with all of the chickens.
Oh my God.
He ran as fast as he could, and there was chicken blood everywhere. Behind him, he heard the door give way and the creature roar. It was hot on his heels. He could hear it breathing right behind him. Travis ran, and ahead of him he could see the dead, mangled body of Farmer Phil. Blood was everywhere, chicken blood, Farmer Phil's blood. Travis was just about to jump over Farmer Phil's body when he slipped in the blood.
Oh no.
As he fell backwards, it was almost like slow motion. This was it. He was going to die.
Oh.
As he fell backward, he saw a massive set of claws swipe over his head. He had accidentally fallen in just the right time, but still, he was on the ground, and the creature was standing over him. He felt its drool fall on him.
Ugh.
He saw its jaws open wide. Travis closed his eyes and awaited for what was to be his death. Boom! There came a sudden loud noise. Travis opened his eyes to see the creature was no longer standing over him, and his ears were ringing.
Whoa.
Whatever had happened, it was loud. He sat up and was stunned at what he saw. Standing there, shotgun in hand, fresh smoke coming from the barrel, was Keith Farley. Travis is stunned and doesn't know what to do. He flinched as slowly Keith extended out a hand to help him to his feet. And figuring he didn't have many choices, Travis grabbed his hand and got up. Keith mumbled something like, "Been wanting to do that for a while." Travis looked up and around to see the beast laying on the ground. A big chunk from its side had been blown off, and you could see some of its broken ribs were exposed.
Wow.
A zillion thoughts are racing through Travis's head. Yes, he's happy that the beast seems to have been subdued, at least for now, but he was also running for his life from Keith, too.
Yeah.
Keith looked up from the creature to Travis and said, "You must not be one of them." Of course, Travis has no idea what this man's talking about. And he asked, what do you mean? One of them? What do you mean? Did this guy think that this creature was a werewolf? And if so, did he think that there was more than one? Keith then mumbled something again, saying, "They don't seem to want to eat their own kind." Travis finally worked up the courage to speak, asking what Keith meant and if there was more than one of these things. Travis asked if Keith had kidnapped him because he thought he was a werewolf, and Keith said something that really blew his mind. "Either that, or them neighbors of mine were about to feed you to them."
Oh my God. That just made my chest feel terrible. Oh my God.
Plot twist.
But I see that, but like, wow, I'm stunned. Okay, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Before Travis could even process what had just been said, Keith urged that they needed to get moving in case there were more of these things. Travis's mind is racing. Why was this guy insinuating that it was Denise and Henry who had actually been his captors? Travis also felt bad just leaving poor Farmer Phil's body behind, but Keith urged that it would only cost them time and maybe even attract more of those things. The top of Farmer Phil's head had been ripped off.
Oh.
The scene was an absolute mess. Travis also noticed that Keith's clothes had been torn up a bit, and he explained he was almost killed himself, but that shotgun he had in the truck was what allowed him to escape. And another detail that Travis happened to notice was on Keith's clothing. It was a patch that read Veteran of the Vietnam War. So, side note, they don't really specify when this event happened, but Travis describes Keith as middle-aged. Now, according to Google, middle-aged is broadly considered between 45 and 65.
Okay.
So if we assume Keith was a veteran of the Vietnam War and was indeed middle-aged, we can kind of maybe get an idea of when this happened. But anyway, they get into Keith's truck and they get out of there. Keith drives him back to his house, and keep in mind, while Travis is grateful that Keith saved his life back there, he is still unsure of this guy.
Yeah.
Keith gets out of the truck first and walked ahead of Travis. Keith entered his home first and left the door ajar for him. Travis just casually hung around outside for a few moments. In the distance, he thought he heard that strange cackle again and decided it was best to just go inside. He got inside and he didn't close the door all the way. He kept it just slightly ajar, just out of precaution, and he nearly jumped out of his skin a few moments later when a gust of wind blew the door open. So Travis turned his back to close it properly, but something outside caught his eye. Down the road at Denise and Henry's property, he could see a young man walking around the house as if he was looking for something. Travis looked closer and realized it was a police officer. In fact, it was Officer Williams, the policeman he had met at Denise and Henry's. Travis took off running, waving his arms to get Officer Williams' attention. He finally got to him, and Officer Williams looked very surprised. He asked what Travis had been doing over at Keith's. Of course, how could Travis even begin to explain what he had just been through in the last 24 hours? The first thing that came out of his mouth was that Keith had kidnapped him. Officer Williams responded by asking where the Bennetts were. Travis was at first so happy to have an adult in authority finally help him, but he started to notice that Officer Williams seemed almost more nervous than him.
Oh no.
Williams turned away and continued to walk around the side of the Bennett's house. And Travis is like, where are you going? But Officer Williams didn't answer. Travis thought this was weird, but just assumed he was doing police work, looking around, searching, and so Travis just followed him around the house until they ended up back at the front of the house. It was then that Travis noticed that Officer Williams' car that was parked out front wasn't a cop car.
Oh no.
It was just a regular car. But he figured, hey, he must have been off duty or something.
Yeah.
And, some police, they do drive in cars that look, like civilian cars, so who knows? But all the while, Travis is asking Officer Williams questions, but getting no response.
Yeah.
They walked right up to the front door, and Officer Williams opened the door, walked in, and closed it behind him right in front of Travis's face. It was like Travis wasn't even there. From inside, Travis could hear Officer Williams calling out, "Denise? Henry?" So Travis opened the door and walked in and found Officer Williams pacing back and forth with a look of fear and confusion on his face. Now, Travis might have been a bit young, but he had a feeling Officer Williams was not behaving in a way that officers are supposed to act. So Travis just kept talking and asking questions. He was saying, hey, you need to call for another officer. I think Keith may have a woman locked up over there in that house. No response. Travis again is like, officer, please, will you just call 911? No response.
Oh my God.
Finally, Travis is like, fine, I'll call 911 myself. He picked up the phone, and as he did, Officer Williams smacked it out of his hand.
Oh no.
Travis is like, what'd you do that for? And Williams, who was once so kind and welcoming, now looked deranged and menacing.
Oh no.
He stared daggers at Travis and demanded he tell him everything he saw while he was at Keith's house. Travis did not waste any time, turned around and ran.
Yeah.
He had to get out of there. Just as Travis got to the door, he momentarily felt Officer Williams' hand grab him. But at that same moment, he released his grip.
Yes.
And Travis heard Officer Williams shout, "Hey, get off me, you bastard!" Travis turned around to see that once again, Keith had come to the rescue.
Whoa.
The two men grappled for a bit, but Keith was able to get Williams in a headlock and held it long enough until the man fell unconscious. Once Keith was back on his feet, he explained that Williams was not a real cop.
Oh, no.
He told Travis they would call the real police, but that first there was something Travis needed to see and understand back at his house.
Yeah.
He explained that Denise and Henry had a son named Eugene who was obsessed with the legend of the Beast of Bray Road. And one day, Eugene went missing and was never seen again. It must have sort of driven Denise and Henry crazy because they became convinced that their son had become one of these creatures, and they were going to use Travis to feed it.
Oh, my God.
He explained that Officer Williams was not a real cop and was, in fact, Denise's younger cousin.
Oh, yeah, it's always the fucking cousin.
He explained that they had done this before. And Keith had previously rescued a young woman they had held captive.
Keith, I mean, whoa, let's go.
Keith said that this woman, when he rescued her, was delirious because of the tranquilizers that they used on her.
What the fuck?
And he also explained how bloated she was, as if they were forcing her to eat to fatten her up.
Jesus, it's like the fucking, Hansel and Gretel.
That woman's voice that Travis thought he heard at Keith's house, that was the young woman. And that young woman, her name was Laura. The same Laura whose journal Travis had found in the camper.
Oh my gosh.
Once inside his home, Keith drew a knife and led them to the basement. They escaped, said Keith. And Travis is like, who? Denise and Henry. Keith had taken both of them and their dog Mickey, and he had restrained the two, Denise and Henry, in the basement. Mm-hmm. But it was clear they got loose.
Yeah.
They went back upstairs, and when in the hallway, there came a loud yell. Charging from out of one of the rooms was Henry, wielding a hatchet. Keith was able to catch his wrist and was able to grapple with the man, but that wasn't all. "Look out!" shouted Travis, and Denise had snuck up behind Keith, and whack, she stuck a small axe into the side of Keith's head, killing him instantly.
Oh my God.
Travis ran as fast as he could out of the house, the couple hot on his heels, but much to his relief, Travis saw a real cop car coming up the road. Earlier, when Williams had slapped the phone out of his hand, Travis had just enough time to actually dial the numbers 911, and he didn't realize that they will still respond to a call even if you don't actually answer.
Yeah, that's true.
Travis waved them down, and two officers got out of the car. Finally, Travis felt safe to look behind him, and Denise and Henry were gone. Soon, law enforcement swarmed the scene, and Travis was finally actually safe. Turns out both Laura and her father from the diary had been captured by Denise and Henry, and Keith had taken them. Remember that faint woman's voice Travis had heard while he was at the Bennett's calling for help? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Laura, who was somewhere in the house restrained.
Ugh, that is so disturbing.
Travis saw Laura and her father as police brought them out of Keith's place. They were clearly not well, speaking gibberish, and their faces and bodies seemed puffy, like they had been force-fed. Sadly, Travis's father was never found, and the media never came asking to hear Travis's story.
What?
Travis was never given Laura or her father's contact info, but he hopes someday he can meet them in person. And that is the end of the Werewolf of Bray Road. What do you think, Maureen?
Dylan, what a damn dirty story. I mean, crazy twists and turns that I didn't know was going to happen. I mean, I want to know your thoughts. Like, what do you think is going on? Like, what do you think this beast is? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think that there is something that's connecting. I think there's something that was connecting the lights in the sky to the poltergeist activity. I think that.
Right.
Now, was this thing conjured by a cult? I don't know. Perhaps a cult had formed.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is he said the media never came asking for the story.
Right.
A lot of people in the documentary and stuff believe that a lot of locals were in on this cultic activity.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who knows? I don't know. I like to think that's the reason, just because it's the more...
Yeah.
it's the more intriguing, it's the more dangerous, it's the more, you know what I mean? It's the more, of all the possible explanations, it's the most alluring to me. But I don't know, what do you think, Maureen?
I mean, I think this story is very scary. And like you said, I'm sure there are parts of it that did not happen or were embellished or whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. But there have been so many instances and cases of people seeing or thinking they're seeing or whatever this beast in this area of Wisconsin, as well as just all over in other, you know, areas in the Midwest.
Right.
You know, they match up enough to show that, like, these people are experiencing something, even if it isn't exactly what we just learned about, which it could be. But we're saying even if it isn't like that, like, something is going on.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, like, how long has this been around? And if it was just cited in the 30s for the first time, it's like, where was it before then? But, you know, pre the 30s, that area, you know, was much more rural than it even is now.
Well, and the sources also go into a lot of the history of werewolf lore.
Yeah.
Like European werewolves and various, you know, werewolf legends from around the globe.
And maybe we'll get into that on the Patreon this month.
Right, too. Yes, that too. And I also thought maybe in the future we'll do an episode that is about werewolves.
Oh, yes.
In general.
I love that. We'll do that.
Like werewolf lore.
Yes.
Technically, we've done a werewolf story before. It was the werewolf of Southend, the Ed and Lorraine case.
Yes.
Whereas this was an actual, like, beast, like a furry beast.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, what a terrifying tale.
Yeah, wow. I really want to hear your thoughts and what you guys all think. So please DM us on social media, or you can email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com. But Dylan, thank you so much for doing that hard work and putting together one hell of an episode to celebrate the spooky season.
You know what, Maureen?
What?
I got a list of names I wouldn't mind howling at the moon with.
Okay, go on. That's kind of cute.
Folks, the names of our top-tier Patreon subscribers, and stick around till the end for the newcomer.
I'm so excited I could explode.
Of course, the Dream, James Watkins, the Finnish Face via Lundqvist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid, Chris Hackworth, the Oh-So-Suave, Sean Richardson, the British Bone Breaker, Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool, Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude, Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand, Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud, Carl Staub, the Firestarter, Heather Carter, the Conqueror, Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Sort of Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren, Hellfire, Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Buren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, the Sadistic Sergio Castillo, the Rapscallion Ryan Crum, the Beast Benjamin Huang, the Devilish Chris Doucette, the Psycho Sam, the Electric Emily Zhang, the Renegade Corey Ramos, the Crazed Carlos, the Antagonist Andrew Park, the Monstrous Michaela Schur, the Witchy Wonder J.P. Weimer, the Freaky Ben Forsyth, the Barbaric Andrew Barry, the Mysterious Marcella, and the Hellacious Cale Hoffman.
That is correct. Carol, thank you so much for joining. You are a welcome and treasured member of the Creep Street Homeowners Association. We are so happy to have you. And you know what? You are great. Have a great day. Enjoy it and give yourself a little treat today. And another reminder to you that we've got the Creep Street Book Club kicking off at the end of this month. The video will probably be on Halloween because it's got to be the end of the month. Let's just say the last day of the month. And of course, the book is called I'm in Love with Mothman by Paige Lavoie. You can get it at, on Amazon, as well as I'm sure many small bookstores. I can't wait to chat with you all about it. And I'm excited to start this book club.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Goodbye.